practically everyone in Las Vegas has $10,000 or more in credit card debt, that means you should file bankruptcy. It's the only thing I sell here, so it must be your only option.
No, it's not. I already went to Panda.
You what? Why did you?
I went to Panda. They told me about all my options. We talked about bankruptcy, but for me, that wasn't the best option. In fact, here's the Panda now.
Not Panda!
Thanks, Panda.
If you've got debt, make sure you call a full-service debt relief law firm, not an attorney that only sells bankruptcy.
Call Panda. We'll sit down with you and discuss your options for getting out of debt, including bankruptcy and debt settlement. Then we'll work to pick the best plan for you.
Call Peters and Associates, 818-3888.
The Las Vegas Aces in their homestand by hosting the Washington Mystics for a Saturday evening game at the Michelob Ultra Arena. So if anyone asks if you have weekend plans, you can now say yes. Listen in Saturday starting at 6:30 on ESPN Las Vegas.
This is SportsCenter all night on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
Here's Jim Basquil.
And ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive Insurance makes bundling home and auto easy. Learn more at progressive.com.
Half-hour headlines on SportsCenter all night.
Again, our top stories. The Stros snapped the Yankees' 15-game home win streak on the same day. Aaron Judge settles his salary with the Bombers. Freddie Freeman with an emotional return to Atlanta in a Dodgers uniform. And the two-time defending Stanley Cup champs stay alive in Game 5.
Left corner headman. In front, Palat! Score! Palat! Andre Palat!
We know we have to just win this game and move on.
Right now it gets a little bit spooky if you're the Avalanche because you had Tampa where you wanted them. You had them right in the crosshairs.
The Lightning has staved off elimination!
This is what the Stanley Cup Final's all about.
Yeah, the Avs got to be feeling it right now, right? Lightning spoiled Colorado's party to stay in the hunt for a third straight Stanley Cup title, beating the Avalanche 3-2. Andre Palat, the game winner, with just over 6 minutes left. Andrei Vasilevsky, the two Andres getting it done. 36 stops in net. Palat coming off his 7th third-period goal of these playoffs. That was his 12th game winner in the playoffs, the most in Lightning team history, and their best player in franchise history, Steven Stamkos, had this postgame.
Talked about it today that we didn't have a choice, right? This is do or die for us. So sometimes you get caught in looking ahead a little bit, and this group did a great job of focusing on the present, and that was to come in here in a very tough place to win and just play a solid game and give ourselves a chance, and that's what we did tonight. We won one game, so as good as it feels to extend the series, we realize how hard we had to work to get that tonight, and we're going to have to replicate that at home. So that was the goal, was when we came in here the other day, was let's get a win and let's get back to Tampa in front of our fans, and we've given ourselves that opportunity.
Again, it was the New York Islanders in the early 80s, last team to win 3 straight Stanley Cup titles. Oh, by the way, they won 4 straight, just saying. Lightning are looking to win 3 straight for the first time in nearly 40 years, with Barry Melrose and Kevin Weeks. Steve Levy look back at Game 5.
Back with the fellas, Andre Palat, now his 12th career game-winning goal in postseason play. Only Joe Pavelski and Evgeny Malkin have more among active players. Scores critical goals, scores them late, Barry, and that's the game winner again.
Listen, if I had to vote for Conn Smythe, I would vote for Palat.
Andre Palat.
I think I would win. This guy does everything for Tampa Bay. You're right, always been a clutch performer in the postseason. And by the way, that truck's backing up. Unrestricted free agent.
Going to get paid.
Absolutely he is.
There's been a lot of talk, Weeksy, about the third line from Tampa, replacing those guys from the last 2 cup runs. How about the fourth line for these guys?
Absolutely. You need players in the bottom 6. They had their imprints on this game. Head coach Cooper got them over the boards regularly in this one.
Yesterday morning, we sat in here. We watched Maroon go out there with his teammates, 5 or 6 of the guys, and they all had a regular practice. And it was really interesting. Is this saying goodbye to each other on the ice? It was pretty emotional, and I think now we know why. He didn't want to quit. He wanted to continue playing, and he certainly had a good game.
Weeks, you know who's going to win no matter what? Barry Melrose, because he lives just outside of Tampa.
Yeah, totally.
Either way, he was still flying to Tampa.
Who's your agent, Bear?
He's the only one who doesn't have to cancel a flight and make new plans. That's the life of Barry Melrose.
Right?
The life of Riley, if you will. The Lightning are now 4-0 when facing elimination since the start of the 2020 playoffs. 3 of those wins have come in this postseason. Emily Kaplan with SVP. She had this post-game.
I was walking at the rink this morning. I saw one of the Lightning players that I knew, and I asked him, "Are you nervous?" And he said, "No." And I just said, "Why?" And he says, "Because have you seen our team?" And I think there's just this belief in these guys that we've been there before. We've been in all of these situations, and it doesn't matter the deficit right now. No one even picked us to make it this far in our third year, going for this third Stanley Cup. And I think that unflappability and that confidence comes out so much that you saw it in this game. So do they look nervous? Absolutely not, because they have been there before.
And Game 6 is Sunday night, 8 Eastern, ABC and ESPN+. Blackhawks expected to hire Canadiens assistant Luke Richardson as their head coach. He's been an assistant on the Habs bench for 4 seasons, working with 3 different head coaches.
With the first pick in the 2022 NBA Draft, the Orlando Magic select Paolo Banchero from Duke University.
Look, you can't go wrong with Paolo Banchero. There's no doubt about it. He's a special talent.
Listen, I never in my life cried tears of joy. Ever. Never have been so happy to where I cried, but I can't even keep it together.
But this kid has talent, and he's a culture builder.
But he now becomes their best player. Kept dreaming, kept working. to be here is crazy.
Yeah, again, Duke's Paolo Banchero was a surprise selection by the Orlando Magic with the top overall pick in Thursday's NBA draft, but that doesn't mean it wasn't the right pick. Tim Legler on SportsCenter.
For me, Paolo Banchero was always the guy that I looked at as being the most NBA-ready day one. He's got such a versatile skill set. He's got the power and the lower body base, I think, immediately to play at that level. And he showed a lot of his skills. And the more the season went on, you got to see more of the open court ball handling. He is a big-time passer. He could score in the post from the mid-range, and I think eventually he's going to be able to easily add NBA three-point range.
So here is a recap of our draft coverage from our team, anchored by Alan Hahn.
Gentlemen, some final thoughts on what we saw tonight. PJ, start with you. One thing that you take from tonight.
The depth, some really good players drafted in the second round that I think are going to have an impact in the league. Obviously, a bunch of 13 internationals, and some players who probably should have gone back, who slipped into the second round. And it's hard always to know, but that's what you're supposed to do when you go feel the waters. Some guys that would have been well served to have another year of college.
Agreed. And what starts for me, of course, at the top. Paolo Banchero, of course, I've known the young man for a very long time. He's a great human being, great person. Happy to see him, and more importantly, how much this meant to him. Just being overcome by emotions, being the #1 pick. This is something that he talked about. PJ, you've known him for a very long time. This was his goal. He wanted to be the #1 pick. He wants to be the best that's ever done this. And so a start for him tonight, and then more importantly, seeing these guys come through in this draft class, because we have to remember that this is the class that was the least exposed class of all, because they were the guys who didn't have their senior year of high school because of COVID. Right. And so now they weren't, some of these guys weren't heavily recruited or whatever it may be, and you see them come to this point. So glad to see this group and really come out of it. Let's hope that we're coming out of this pandemic now, seeing these guys make it.
I know you asked for one. This one's quick. Very impressive group. These guys handled themselves very well. All the interviews we had excellent interviews and a very impressive group of young men.
Kevin missed 27 games with injuries, and Kyrie being out for over half the season. I mean, that hurts. That hurts from a roster building standpoint. That's not what we planned for.
This is Sean Marks basically trying to reset the culture here.
Yeah. The Nets were talking tough regarding Kyrie Irving at the end of the season. Deshaun Marks and company stick to their guns. They don't want to max out on a player who's played less than half their games in 3 seasons and not injury related. Irving has given them a 16 preferred trade list should talks for a new contract break down. The Clippers are one of those teams on the list. This was their GM, Lawrence Frank, on Friday. I'm going to read part of his quotes here. I think you look at it all, basketball character, and like you can be counted on every single day to do what you do at the highest level. And how committed are you to those habits? I'll read it again. Counted on every single day to do it at the highest level. Is that Kyrie Irving? I think not. So count the Clippers out because they made it clear Kyrie does not fit what they want. Chris Canty says Irving may have to get used to that sentiment.
Here's the thing about the list that Kyrie laid out yesterday. All of those teams, they don't necessarily want Kyrie Irving's services.
Yeah.
And that's the part that people need to understand. He might have 6 teams out there that he would feel comfortable going to. That doesn't mean those 6 teams have any interest in him.
Meantime, Kevin Durant said Friday he's going to just let things play out and not get involved in this Irving Nets drama. His former Thunder teammate, Kendrick Perkins.
When he talked about, like, basically it's Kyrie's personal decision and he can't persuade a man to go in a direction. Well, somebody persuade you. You went sit down and you had meetings with ways you to leave Oklahoma City when y'all had meetings in the Hamptons. So you're telling me a guy that you call, quote unquote, your brother, that you don't have an impact on his decision making for as him whether or not he want to opt into his contract on the team that y'all chose to join together, and then all of a sudden you come out on a podcast and say, hey, you know what, it's his decision, it's the most important time of his life. First of all, this is not Kyrie's first contract extension or, free agency or whatever you want to call it. So I don't get what Kevin Durant is saying. I don't understand why Kevin Durant don't hold Kyrie Irving accountable. That's the crazy thing to me.
Amen to that, Perk. That, by the way, if Irving opts in, he'll need the Nets' help to find the next team in a sign and trade. Now, the Lakers may be the one team that fits, and maybe Kyrie even opts out. Don't think he wouldn't do that, right? Take the mid-level at $6 million. How do you suppose Durant would take that if Irving takes $30 million less to leave KD in Brooklyn and re-team with LeBron? Whoa, John, what that LBJ relationship is currently like for Irving.
I think it's absolutely good enough to play together. I think the relationships are a lot less important if you're the Lakers when you are as talent-starved as they are. You get